All right, from our studios this week in Detroit and Tampa, this is Green Tagged Theme Park in 30. I'm Philip, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Scott Swenson of Scott Swenson Creative Development. On Green Tagged, we look at the week's top news in theme parks, and we explain why it matters to business professionals. And this week, we're going to do a little bit of a mystery jumble bag of some different topics from different areas. We're going to respond to some comments from our YouTube. We're also going to talk about Scott's trip to IAAPA in Barcelona, and we're going to talk a little bit about Lego and then some immersive art experiences, and then we'll see how far we get. But I'm in Detroit. I'll be here for the next month. I'm here working on a gig here with a client, and I'm in my new temporary office, and Scott is back home from his trip
in the galaxy. I'm here lost in the galaxy. So, no, I'm in Tampa. I'm really happy. I had to make sure I got back to Tampa quickly because we just opened Creatures of the Night at Zoo Tampa, and we had a beautiful opening. And it is, I have to say, the reason I say it was a beautiful opening, that sounds like I'm being very arrogant for a show that I helped write and put together and creative direct. No, I call it a beautiful opening because it's the first time in, I can't remember how many years, where it didn't rain on us in our dress rehearsal. It didn't rain on opening night.
Yep.
It was, so for me, that's a beautiful opening. Yep. But it's a really fun family event, and there's videos are starting to surface now. There's some on my Instagram stuff, but it's just it's a very cool little hot show, Halloween show, and it's designed to startle the giggles out of you. But it's, to my knowledge, it is the largest cast of a zoo Halloween event. Now, again, that's anecdotal, but I have not seen one or heard of one that has a larger cast anywhere. So if you want to go out and celebrate Halloween with your family, and it's ideal for like 7 to 12-year-old kids and their families. Although there's stuff for stroller kids too. So
it's an incredible show for, like Scott said, for a zoo. Like, I think it stands alone as a show, regardless of it being a zoo or not. And that's how events should be, in my opinion. At attractions, they should stand alone on their own competition. You shouldn't need to just lean into, it being something else. It stands alone as a Halloween destination. And I'm in Detroit. I'm here working at Hush Haunted Attraction, my main client for the Halloween season, where I'm handling mostly marketing and PR and video and all that coordination. And we just opened. Last night was our opening night, and it was insane. I will say, we had record-breaking crowds. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say how many people we had.
Probably not, but record-breaking is good.
Yeah, they're not listening anyway. But yeah, I think we had.
We can do it. We can do it on Unhinged. We can get real numbers.
That's true. But I will say probably almost twice as many as opening day last year. And it was packed. I was shocked. I was literally shocked at how many people were in the lobby, because I was thinking I wasn't going to get the crowd shot, that you always get for marketing, where you show all the people, until next week. But so I think there's these are good signs. As much as people say, there's a talk about how good the economy is or isn't, and there's all this back and forth. I think we've seen some pretty good signs at least at our attraction of tickets sold. So.
And I'm going to say, I think I think that the mid range or the independents are going to be fine. I think where the hurt is going to happen is in some of the maybe some of the larger ones. I don't know. We'll see by the end of the season.
We'll see. We'll definitely see. So, first up here, we're going to talk about just reply to some YouTube comments from our video last week. And I think in that, I did not do a good job at all of explaining the sesame thing, which a lot of people pointed out, and I'm glad that they did point that out, so that people are clear. So I think last week I made it seem like Sesame Street was owned by Six Flags, because I didn't do a good job of explaining my brain thing. In my brain, what I was trying to do is convey a pattern. And the pattern is reduction of Halloween and Christmas schedules. And it started with Six Flags, and now it's leaping over to other people. So that's what I was like. I was trying to draw the parallel, but I did not put it that clearly. And so it came across as me saying that, or people inferring from it that Sesame was owned by Six Flags, which it's not. But what I was trying to say is the other property, which it was Six Flags America, right?
Six Flags America just closed, but some of the other Some of the other Six Flags parks, though, have either reduced or eliminated completely their
That's right, and especially
menu
Six Flags America, where they stopped doing all their holiday because they closed completely. And so what I'm saying is this is a trend where you're trying to see this. And the basic argument is this going to impact the value proposition for season pass holders or not? That's the crux of the question. And if more places start to cut back on their holiday stuff, like, Sesame, and going forward, potentially other parks as well, if they cut back days or they cut back investment, does that impact the calculus for season pass holders or not? And that's the question we're trying to solve, because I don't think we know. And that's the thing what we're trying to do. So I did a bad job, but thank you everybody for those comments about to clarify, because as soon as I saw those comments, I went back and listened to it and I was like, yes, I did not explain that well at all. Thank you.
So generally speaking, I'm just excited that people are commenting, because, Philip and I said from the very beginning 5 years ago when we started this show was not here to answer all the questions. It was to get people asking the right ones. It was to get people talking. It was to get people engaging in this industry, and especially industry professionals. The idea here is we are not here to tell you absolutely everything, how to do everything in this industry, because quite honestly, despite the fact that we've both been in the industry for a very long time, we don't know everything, and we don't pretend to. What we try to do is we try to present the trends, we try to present the ideas and the concepts, and then let you guys figure out what works best for you. If you are an industry professional, if you're an industry professional and you own, let's say for example, you own an FEC or a family entertainment center, what works for Universal cannot be lifted and applied directly. However, the concepts or the theory behind it may be. So it opens up a great opportunity for discussion and a series of what ifs. A perfect example of that sort of opening up that concept of discussion is there were a couple people who commented regarding because we were basically making the point that with Six Flags, they were reporting that their attendance was up, but when you dug deeper, basically their revenue was down. So, and we of course said that means that we're bringing in a lot of people at a much lower or reduced price, and that was also stated in the document. Someone interpreted that and went back and kind of compared what the previous season passes were for Cedar Fair parks with what they are now for the Six Flags Cedar Fair combination. And that's sort of like comparing apples to aardvarks. There's it's an old pass versus a new pass, which has completely different benefits, completely different pricing structure. So but I like, as Philip said, I love the fact that, you're commenting on this and sharing your insight, because we do a lot of research, and by we I mean Philip. Philip does a lot of research, and and it's, for me, I'll make a couple phone calls every now and then, going, "Is this right?" And of course it is, because Philip researched it appropriately. Duh. But to get you guys talking about it, that's really the whole point of doing this. And if you are enjoying us on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe, because if you subscribe, it makes it so that we can guarantee that we'll be on there longer. So go ahead and make sure that if you comment, if you're watching this right now on YouTube, just hit subscribe. We don't usually go in and beg or push that, but it will benefit you, because it benefits us and it allows us to be more sustainable and keep going on YouTube. So please just subscribe. That's good. We would love that. What other comments did we see on there? I was taking notes before the show.
Well, I think a big trend we saw also is this concept of, well, like to Scott's point, I'm glad that people are talking about it, because I think what's important here is the concept, the idea that what is the goal? Is the goal attendance, or is it per cap? And we've talked before about how parks love to change the goal on people and kind of flip back and forth, And I think right now Six Flags is entering its attendance era, is basically what now, and the whole thing that we're talking about, the whole point to this discussion that last week was the idea that they are changing the goal to say we're trying to get more people in the parks. And that doesn't necessarily, that means that their gate price is actually going to go down because they're discounting to bring them in. Now, that means in the long run, it could bring in more revenue if those people spend money. And I think that's what Scott and I were trying to discuss is just the basic question, which we don't know the answer to. The question is, are they going to spend more money or not? And we don't know. And we think that if they are cutting season events, that our hypothesis is cutting season events would lead to actually less spending, because season events in our experience are a thing that increases spend. And again, the zoo example, all these examples that we've talked about are all increased revenue. And I will say from our experience here at Hush, we've changed the goalpost as well, because we got to a point where we couldn't push any more attendance through the attraction. And so we decided to change the goal to increasing per cap. And the way we did that was by adding a bar program. And now this year we have a food program. And so we're actually trying to decrease our attendance because the experience is better. I'm sure all of you have been through the Halloween Horror Nights where they do the conga lines. We don't want to do a conga line experience, which means our attendance is actually much, much smaller. Like, we have to really decrease the attendance on purpose in order to make sure it's not a conga line. So in order to make up for that, we do encourage the bar program, the secret bars. We have secret bars that are in the middle of the attraction. So we encourage that bar program. And then we also encourage the food. And so what that does is allow us to have less people, which makes the experience better, because they're on average paying more. Like, are there still people that are only buying a general admission ticket? Yes. But, a lot more are purchasing multiple things, which allows us to have less people overall, which allows the experience to be better. So again, it's this concept.
And I think this is just a perfect example of the takeaway from this being, ask yourself, do you have room to expand capacity, or do you have more need or desire to expand per cap? And if you say both, you do not have a functioning plan. You have to figure out which is your goal, and it may change. It may change from time to time. There are people out there who will say there is no such thing as capacity for a walk through haunted experience, or there's no such thing as capacity for a walk-through immersive experience. I guess in theory, they're probably right. However, the quality of the experience and the repeatability of the experience both are significantly attacked and lowered if you're trying to push too many people through. They're either rushed through, or there's such a crowd that they don't get a chance to really experience and look at all the great detail that you put into things. The idea of incorporating food and beverage, we've talked about on this show many, many, many times. And even like Meow Wolf Houston now has a bar in the middle of the experience. They also have a performance space that they can add a ticketed event if they want to, and it's literally right in the center of their immersive walkthrough. So it's one of those things that just decide how you're going to measure up front, because if you don't, data can be weaponized to prove one thing or another. So just make sure that when you set up, this year, our goal is to increase attendance by 5%. That way you have a clear North Star, you have a target to aim for, and you can plan your event accordingly. Or we're going to try to raise our per cap spending by 3%, which would be huge. 3% increase across your entire attendance for the season, or your entire attendance for the year, if you happen to be a year-round park. All that is really cool. It gives you a way to approach your situation, and it gives you a good, solid way to measure what your success or failure rate is. So, I think that's really probably the biggest takeaway is, are you trying to raise your attendance, or are you trying to raise money? And I think that you can, as long as you identify that at the beginning, you're in good shape.
And we have talked about Six Flags a lot, because again, I think also what we're trying to say is, we're looking at what they're saying in their investor documents, on their investor earnings, in the big plan that they released out. And then but again, as Scott always say, as we always talk about, it's about the execution. So we're looking at, what are they saying they're going to do? And this is what they say that their plan is. What are some of the indicators that they are either following or not following that plan? And so this is the discussion we're trying to have about it, and just looking to see if it all matches up. And again, they are saying they're working on all these things, right? They're saying that they are improving the food because they're trying to get people to spend more in the parks, and people will not spend more if the food is terrible. So they're trying to increase the quality of the food to increase the spending. And, so what they're saying is they're following this path by bringing in more people and then renovating the food experiences. So encouraging those people to come back. So the first phase is sell all of these season pass holders at a discount. Then the next phase would be encouraging them to come back to the park, and then renovating these experiences so they'll spend more when they come back to the park on food, because the food will be better. So it'll be worth it, right? So, but then I think Scott and I are asking the question of, well, if you're not maintaining your facilities or you're cutting experiences, why are they going to come back? Like, what's the incentive for the pass holders to come
and in
back?
fairness, and one of our comments said this, and I experienced it in the real world, that some of the parks are looking better than they've looked in years. I mean, Six Flags Great America was looking great, and we had a commenter that said that the St. Louis Park is also
That's right.
looking really good. So hopefully they have a long range plan, and not just let's find something that we can tell our stockholders is good because we're clicking the turnstiles a lot. Anyway, what we wanted to, the real purpose of us reviewing these and kind of talking about them, is to say thank you very much for continuing to comment, for continuing to subscribe to us on YouTube. And even if your comments are simply restating what we've already talked about, that's really important, because it's the best way to show everybody understands. And sometimes, as we have learned, we will say things that we know what we meant, but our mouths don't always agree. So if you can restate your perspective, or a way that we have shared something that has sparked something in you, that's just great too. So keep commenting, keep watching. That's basically the issue here, because it makes us all better.
And well, we can move on a little bit. So Scott just returned from IAAPA Europe. Right. And there he was one of the instructors for the IAAPA Certified Attractions Program. Is that what it's called? IAAPA Certified Attractions?
It's IAAPA Attractions Professionals Training. It's IAP
never
training.
Mind.
No,
this is what I mean. I got it wrong.
Well, no, you didn't get it wrong. IAAPA has so many different programs, because they're such a robust organization, that sometimes I get confused as to which one I'm doing. But yes, that was the fifth time that I've taught the entertainment module for IAP training, and the first time in Europe. And it went very, very well. The IAP faculty came from literally all over the world. Let's see, Austria, England, Dubai, U.S. I was the only U.S. representative there. And Saudi Arabia. So it was a very international group. The students were amazing.
That's good.
Yeah, they were so eager and so excited, and it was such a wide range of, people who are, we had several what I would call whiz kids. These are kids who have been involved. They started out as fanboys, and now they're working in the industry and just starting to quickly move their way up. And by getting this kind of training, basically what it is it's a 2-day training that gives them a working knowledge of all the different areas in the park. And with this, it kind of evolved on its own, and that is that all the areas need to work together, and they need to have an understanding of what the other departments do, so that they can all work together and reduce the separation between departments that often creates disjointed product or disjointed projects. So the kids were great, and they came from all kids. Some of them, well, no, none of them were as old as I am, but they were very wide age range. And it was very exciting to see some of the up and coming talent. And then I also did a panel with my friends Maya Matar and Philip Gamper, my other friend Philip. And Philip Gamper is from Swarovski Crystal World, and Maya is a consultant out of Dubai. And we did a session that we absolutely had the most fun doing, and it was called The Fun Factor, and it was how marketing and human resources and entertainment can all work together to create a fun work environment. And it was, after everybody finished, we had the entire class, and we were at capacity for our EDGE session, and we had the entire class stand up. They took the oath, and they were now fun creators, and they all got their own pin that said, "I'm a fun creator." And then some people who were very eager, we gave them extra pins to say, if you see someone who's having fun, give them this pin. So we were really trying to become as viral within the show as possible, just to make sure that, IAAPA believes that, we are the fun creators. That's what this industry does. And so we wanted to really reinforce that. But what's most funny about that particular class is the three of us met teaching IAP at the Riyadh Trade Summit, at the Middle Eastern Trade Summit in Riyadh, and we just hit it off. So for me, the takeaway from IAAPA in general, but especially for IAAPA Europe, which is very similar to IAAPA North America, it's very similar to Expo in Orlando, not quite as large. It's the education is not quite as robust. There are some really cool edutaurs. You heard me talk at great length about PortAventura World, but there's some great edutaurs. Unfortunately, I didn't get to stay there the whole time, but the real goal for me going to these things is to meet new people in the industry, to learn from them, to develop relationships with them, and as a consultant, that's what I need to do in order to keep my business working. But the nicest thing is it's just so darn much fun because you find like-minded people, and no matter where they are on their career path, whether they're just starting out or whether they've been involved with the opening of every major theme park since the 1920s. I haven't met anybody like that quite yet, but it's just good. It's just a good opportunity to meet people. I always say it's great to be in the room where it happens, and expos are like that.
Yep. Well, should we get to some news then, I guess?
Sure. Yes. We've talked enough about us. Let's talk about the news now.
Too much talking. So we have, see if we can get through some quick news here. So there's some news here about Lego, which is investing $200 million in a $200 million deal. Lego is going to acquire the 29 Lego Discovery Centers from Merlin Entertainments, bringing operations in-house. The attractions collectively welcome about 5 million guests annually. And so that's basically it. That's the story. It's just Lego acquiring these areas. Again, I think, as always, it comes to the execution. How are they going to incorporate these? How are they going to operate them? Moving. I think in this case, Lego is a strong operator, obviously, and so they do have the operational knowledge. They should be able to take over operations of these now. And I do think it strengthens the brand because now they have more direct consumer engagement, right, with these centers and with then their other properties that they can put together. And I think the same thing as we talked about before, where you see a lot of the smaller, there's always consolidation, and then it's bundling and unbundling. Business is all bundling and unbundling. That's all it ever is. Everything is a bundle or unbundle. And I think we've been seeing bundling with the Six Flags, but now we're seeing some strategic unbundling where you have smaller chains that are looking at where they can be the most competitive. And this does seem to work for both places, because I think Merlin probably recognizes they can't be as competitive with these Lego properties. And so they can unbundle, they can remove those and give them over back to Lego, and Lego can then unify it together. And then Merlin could look at doing strategic investments in areas where they can be more competitive.
And just to clarify, we do recognize that Lego is not Six Flags. So I just want to clarify, we know that Lego and Six Flags are completely different. Philip was making a comparison between the two.
Yeah, although no.
Well, at this moment, we know that they're not. Who knows? Anything could happen. I think that's exactly right. And Lego's a great operator. So Lego has a unique opportunity, though, because not only do they have incredibly successful theme parks with really fun attractions, but the whole building brand. There's you talk about immersive and giving people kinesthetic opportunities to actually do stuff. Well, Lego started that way. So I think that they're kind of sitting in the catbird seat. They got some good stuff coming up, and taking it back in house is not a bad thing.
I think that I was astonished actually at the quality of Legoland in Shanghai when we toured it, and I think this is really going to be a key growth strategy for the brand going forward, is really to get more vertical with some of their most passionate people with the brand, most passionate consumers at Lego, and to be able to then reach so many more of them with these discovery centers, and maybe building more unique experiences with them. And then we've talked previously about how Merlin's in a tricky position. They're just tricky with Universal moving in to an area that they have so many properties near, right? They do have to really rethink what their competitive mix is going to be. It's a polite way of putting it, right?
Yeah, sure. Well, and keep in mind, Merlin and Lego specifically has gone through some changes in the way that they do things. So this is just another change, and perhaps it's just all part of the same change. Perhaps it's just the next chapter in the story that we weren't privy to when they made their previous changes. So we'll see how it goes. But I think Lego is a strong company, and they're, as Philip says, their theme park offerings are usually top quality and should continue to be successful. We'll keep our fingers crossed for our friends at Lego.
So the next story here is something on the theme of repurposing some assets, which we talk a lot about on the show. So what this is, as I understand it is a movie theater that is being reimagined as a Meow Wolf adjacent type of experience. So it's called Atlas 9, and they're saying it's a narrative-driven immersive art experience, which opens the doors in Kansas City, Kansas. And it's a 40,000 square foot containment building that is a renovated 1990s movie theater, and it's shifting into a living cinematic universe, putting visitors at the center of the story. In addition to its box office area, the venue also includes numerous themed rooms and corridors, a 1940s themed jazz club, and a speakeasy, along with a 240 seat auditorium with projection mapping, an arcade, pizza parlor, and more. Each Atlas 9 narrative unfolds across detailed cinematic sets and multi-sensory interactive exhibits, all aided by radio frequency indicators, RFID technology, basically. So this is a lot of the things we talk about. They're incorporating the speakeasy and the food elements, but they're also taking an existing building and trying to like refit it, but it's having a multi-use space, which again, like the Netflix house type of thing we talked about, right? And again, I think it all comes back to execution and market, right? I have no idea what the Kansas City market is or how this will perform in that region, but this seems to be following all of the good best practices we talk about.
And as far as repurposing buildings, this is happening everywhere.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Everywhere. The first time I noticed it like blatantly, when it kind of hit me upside the head, was in Riyadh, where they have these giant indoor malls, and brick and mortar shopping is even there on the downtrend. So what was happening is you'd go into these malls and every other major store was some form of family entertainment center, a zoological animal experience. It became more and more entertainment. The one mall that I was in earlier this year, I would venture to say that roughly 30% of the mall's 30 to 40% of the mall's occupants, 30% of the mall's occupants were FECs. 30%. And that's everything from electric go-karts in one to, I'm kind of lumping them all together. One was basically a petting zoo, for lack of better description. One of them was a bunch of inflatables and ball pits. One of them was arcade games, and one of them was all of these things. So the big anchor stores are becoming more and more affordable, I guess.
Well, I think it's funny you mentioned that, because I went to visit Harrah's Nightmare, which was the HAA Oscars winner for the best new haunt, and they're in a shopping mall, and it's the same type of thing where they are trying to bundle different attractions together, and they have a year-round horror store attached to the haunted house, but I mean they're taking over parts of the mall. I mean, it's this whole, I think again it's the bundling and unbundling, right? Where we had that phase where we had all these independent, you had the individual theme parks and you had all the independent attractions. It looks like now we might be rebundling these elements back together so you can make one central place again, like the downtown, the whole concept of the shared space where you put everyone together, because it just makes sense, because infrastructure is expensive, and getting all the people to one spot, it's easier. You get them all there, and then especially in America, where it's different from Europe and other areas where you don't have as much public transit. So it's just getting to the place and parking and going in is such a big procedure, which so I think makes these things more appealing.
At least in the short term, even the smaller shops that are still surviving in the brick and mortar world love it when these kinds of attractions come in, because it again draws people to the mall. And if they walk by the store, it's like, oh, wait a minute, let me go in and pick up some X, Y, or Z, whatever the store happens to sell. There are malls. I can remember back in my day, when every mall
What
would
day
have
was that?
many days ago. But back in my day, I can remember when malls it was a big deal in the late 70s, early 80s for a mall to have an arcade,
Yeah.
and it was like, ooh, we're going to have an arcade. And now these arcades are the size of like an old JCPenney's department store. They're huge, and they're great, and they bring extra attention in, and they generally generate some revenue. But once again, it all depends on execution. So it's a great concept, but great concepts, if they're not executed well, will indeed fail. So just keep that in mind. Also keep in mind that we are done for this week, and keep us in mind for next week, because we will be back. And if you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe. Please continue to comment, and we will do our best to respond to those comments, especially if we've made an oops, or if we need some clarification, or even if we see something that we think is absolutely brilliant. We'd like to share it with everybody else.
Yep.
So until next week, this is Green Tag Theme Park in 30. And on behalf of Philip and myself, Scott Swenson, we will see you next week.
Or on our Patreon show, where we're going to talk about the Colorado ruling.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, okay.